They said the mask was carved by a madman, a craftsman who smiled even as his village burned. Its grin was too wide, too human, too alive. In the village of Anu, children were warned never to stare at it for too long, because if you did, it would smile back. But one man, Okoro, didn't believe in stories. He believed in gold, fame, and the attention that came with it. So, when the old shrine keepers fled after strange screams in the night, Okoro broke the locks, pushed open the wooden doors and took the mask. He didn't see the shadow that moved behind it. He didn't hear the faint laughter that rose from the carved teeth. He just smiled, just like the mask, and walked out, believing he had stolen a piece of beauty. That night, the drums stopped beating in Anu. The wind changed direction. And before dawn, Okoro's laughter was heard echoing from the forest, a laughter that never seemed to end. Because the mask he wore refused to come off. The people of Anu believed that every craft had a spirit. A potter's clay carried the breath of the earth. A weaver's cloth carried the rhythm of rain. And a mask. A mask carried the soul of its maker. Long ago, before Okoro was born, there had been a carver named Nokwi, a quiet man who lived at the edge of the village. His work was unlike anyone else's. The masks he carved didn't just look real. They felt alive. Their eyes followed you, their mouths seemed ready to move. People whispered that Nokwi used something else besides wood, something that came from the dead. When a great plague came to Anu, Nokwi lost his wife and son in the same week. For 7 days he didn't speak or eat. Then one morning, smoke rose from his hut again. He was carving with trembling hands, his face streaked with tears. That mask, the one he made after their deaths, was the last he ever finished. A wide grin, carved too deep, polished too bright, painted with red from an unknown source. When Nokwi died soon after, his hut burned, but the mask survived untouched. The villagers buried it deep beneath the old shrine, sealing it with charms and palm wine, saying, "Let the craftsman rest. Let his grief sleep." Years passed. The memory faded, until Okoro arrived. Okoro was not an evil man, just a proud one. He was a trader, known for his loud laughter and his thirst for wealth. He had built his house bigger than anyone's, his robes brighter, his goats fatter. Yet he wanted more. When he heard of the old shrine and the forbidden mask, he smiled. "A mask that never decays. I will sell it to the city men. They love strange things." His friend Obi, a palm wine tapper, tried to stop him. "Okoro, some treasures are not meant for living hands." But Okoro laughed. "Then let the dead come and take it from me." That night, under a blood-red moon, he entered the shrine. The air was thick, heavy with dust and silence. Charms made of bones and shells hung from the beams, rattling softly. In the center sat the mask. It was beautiful, too beautiful. Ebony dark, polished smooth, the smile wide and gleaming. Its eyes were hollow but seemed to see. Okoro lifted it, feeling a strange warmth beneath his palms. The air trembled. A low hum filled the room, like a sigh escaping from deep within the earth. But he only grinned and wrapped it in cloth. From that night the village changed. Children stopped playing near Okoro's compound. Goats refused to graze near his fence. His own dog barked at his door and then vanished one night, leaving only a trail of paw prints that ended abruptly. Inside his hut, Okoro cleaned the mask and hung it above his sleeping mat. He told himself the whispers he heard at night were the wind, the soft laughter, just imagination, until the third night, when he woke to find the mask smiling wider. He blinked. The grin stretched impossibly, its carved lips curving higher than before. Its eyes shimmered faintly, like someone watching from behind the wood. Okoro stumbled back, heart pounding. No, I must be dreaming. But when he turned to leave, the door slammed shut on its own. And then came the whisper. Drawn out. "Wear me." Okoro froze. The mask was glowing faintly, its red paint glistening like fresh blood. "Wear me." the voice repeated, now from behind him. Before he knew what he was doing, Okoro reached for it. His fingers trembled. His breath hitched. The moment the mask touched his face, it sealed. In blinding pain. It felt like 1,000 ants crawling under his skin, digging through flesh. He screamed, but no sound came out. The mask fused into him, its edges sinking into his cheeks, its teeth merging with his own. When morning came, Okoro walked out of his hut. The villagers gasped. His skin was pale, his smile wide, too wide. His eyes no longer blinked. But Okoro spoke as if nothing had changed. He sold goods in the market, laughed with strangers, and yet, those who met his eyes felt cold. Children cried. Chickens stopped laying. A woman swore she saw Okoro's reflection smiling in a mirror after he had turned away. The air in the hut thickened after that night. Kofi stopped speaking to anyone in the village. The mask, once hanging quietly on the mud wall, seemed to shift each time he turned his back. Its carved grin, wide and cruel, grew deeper in the flicker of lamplight. And though its wooden surface never moved, Kofi swore he could hear breathing behind it. At first he tried to ignore it. He told himself it was exhaustion, guilt, or maybe the fever that came from working too long under the sun. But the whispers began soon after. Soft, like the hum of wind through hollow gourds. A language he didn't recognize. Clicks and murmurs, melting into laughter. And always followed by the mask's grin. One night, Kofi woke to the sound of his own laughter. He sat up, heart pounding, sweat glistening on his bare chest. The mask stared back from the opposite wall, moonlight crawling across its surface. "Who's there?" he whispered. The hut was silent. The only sound was the crackle of the dying fire and his shallow breathing. He stood up, trembling, grabbed the mask and turned it over. Nothing. Just the dry smell of wood and something faintly metallic. He set it back down and turned to leave. Then a voice, low and deep, spoke behind him. "You wore me once. Why did you stop smiling?" Kofi froze. His spine turned to ice. He didn't turn around. Couldn't. He bolted out of the hut into the cool night air, gasping, his feet kicking up dust. The village was asleep, the baobab tree casting a long shadow under the moon. From inside his hut, faintly, came laughter. His laughter. By the next morning the mask was gone. He searched the entire hut. Nothing. But when he looked into his water bowl to wash his face, he screamed. The reflection wasn't his own. Where his eyes should have been, there were hollow black holes. And his mouth, stretched into a smile far too wide for any human face. He stumbled backward, knocking the bowl over. The water spilled into the dirt, soaking the floor. When he blinked again, his face was normal. Except, he could still feel that grin stretching beneath his skin. That day, when he walked through the market, villagers stared. "Why are you smiling like that, Kofi?" one old woman asked, crossing herself. He hadn't realized he was. His lips ached, dry and cracked, yet fixed in that cursed grin. Kofi stopped sleeping. He started hearing voices from within the baobab forest. Soft, coaxing voices calling his name. At night, he saw shapes moving beyond the window. Tall, thin figures that shimmered like heat. He knew the stories. Spirits of the greedy. Those who sought beauty and forgot humility. But he had only wanted to restore the mask to sell it. Was that greed? One evening, he found himself sitting before it again. He didn't remember bringing it back from the market. He didn't remember anything past sundown. The mask rested before him now, and it was smiling wider than before. "Do you remember me?" it whispered. Kofi swallowed hard, staring at it. "You're not real. Then why do I speak? Why do you listen?" The mask's tone shifted, soft, intimate, like an old friend. "I gave you beauty once. Can give you more. Power. Admiration. You need only wear me again." Kofi's body trembled. He remembered the first time he found it, deep beneath the shrine ruins, hidden under red clay. He had thought it a gift from the ancestors. He reached for it, fingers shaking, and the wood felt warm, almost alive. "All who see your face will love you," it whispered. "All who hear your voice will obey." He hesitated, sweat running down his neck. He knew it was wrong. But vanity, that small, poisonous root, pulsed in his chest. Slowly he lifted the mask. When he placed it over his face, he gasped. His mind filled with light, a flash of gold and blood and laughter. He saw the village bowing before him, children offering fruit, women admiring his beauty, the world bending to his will. But then the light shifted, and he saw the same faces rotting, screaming, melting into the soil. Their eyes hollow, their mouths twisted in smiles. He tried to rip the mask off. It wouldn't move. It had fused to his skin. He screamed, a terrible animal sound, clawing at his face. But the mask laughed. "You wanted their eyes on you. Now they'll never look away." He ran into the night, stumbling through the fields, his reflection glinting off every puddle, the same grinning face staring back. Days turned to weeks. The villagers began finding strange carvings near the baobab tree. Smiling faces etched into the bark, into stone, even into their own doors overnight. No one saw Kofi again. But sometimes late at night they'd hear a sound, a half-laugh, half-scream, carried on the wind. Those who dared approach the hut said the walls pulsed, as if breathing. The mask still hung there, grinning. But beneath it, faint scratches formed a warning. Never wear what hides a smile. Months later, a traveling trader came through the village. He entered the abandoned hut, ignoring the elders' warnings. Inside he found dust, silence, and that mask on the wall. "Such craftsmanship," he whispered. "I could sell this for a fortune." He reached out. The wood was warm. Behind him something laughed. The moon rose over the village of Nsumu like a pale, unblinking eye. The air was heavy, unmoving, as if the world itself held its breath. Weeks had passed since Kofi vanished into the forest, swallowed by the whispers of his own madness. Children were told not to wander near his hut. Women drew protective symbols on their doors. Men no longer hunted near the baobab grove. But the silence there was deceptive. Because sometimes in the deepest hours before dawn, the wind carried a sound too human to belong to spirits, too hollow to belong to men. Laugh. The laugh of someone who had smiled for far too long. No one knew his name, the man who came months later. He arrived on a creaking ox cart, his cloak tattered by desert winds. He said he was from the coast, trading in relics, masks, and charms of the ancestors. When the villagers warned him of the cursed hut, he only smiled, the smile of a man who believes in money more than myths. "Every curse is just a story," he said, "and every story has a price." That night, he walked to the abandoned hut beneath the baobab tree. The moonlight was silver and cold, illuminating footprints, too large to be human, too deep to be real. The trader stepped inside. Dust coated everything. The air smelled of ash and something faintly sweet, like rotting fruit. And there it was, a mask, still grinning, still perfect, still waiting. He lifted it from the wall and brushed it off. The eyes of the mask were dark and empty, until they weren't. For 1 second he saw movement inside them. Flicker of light, like something alive. But he laughed to himself. "Fear is for the poor," he muttered. He wrapped the mask in cloth and carried it out of the hut. As he turned to leave, the door slammed shut. He froze. The wind had died. The world went still. Then, in the reflection of his brass bracelet, he saw something behind him. His own face, wearing the mask, smiling back. The second possession. The trader never made it to the next village. His cart was found days later on the side of the road, the ox still tied, the goods untouched. But the man was gone. Only the mask remained, lying in the dust. And this time, the carved grin was stained with blood. When the villagers came to collect the remains, the elders refused to touch it. They said the mask had chosen another face, and when it was done feeding, it smiled wider. Years passed, seasons turned, but the land around Kofi's hut never grew again. No grass, no flowers, just red soil that cracked and smoked under the sun. The villagers whispered that the mask was buried there now, beneath the roots of the baobab, where Kofi had once knelt to ask the ancestors for fortune. But sometimes on moonlit nights, the soil still bulged, as if something beneath it was breathing. And if you listened carefully, you could hear that faint, familiar laughter, a hollow, echoing sound that came from the deep earth. They say the mask was once a gift from the gods, meant to teach men the beauty of humility. But when greed touched it, the gift became a curse. Every man who wore it wanted to be admired, to be seen, to be worshipped. But the more they smiled, the less human they became. Because vanity has a hunger, and once you feed it, it devours you from the inside out. And so, the mask smiles still, not because it is happy, but because it has learned to live off desire. Every grin carved upon its surface is another man who wanted too much. Another soul swallowed by its reflection. So, the next time you stand before your mirror, and find yourself smiling for no reason, ask yourself one question. Who taught you to smile like that? Because somewhere, in a forgotten village beneath a sleeping baobab, a mask still waits for another face. Face like yours, soul like yours, and it never stops smiling. Greed never shouts. It whispers. It tells you you're beautiful, deserving, better than the rest. But when you listen long enough, you stop hearing your own voice. And all that's left is the mask.